Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining our latest webinar in the Building the New Forest Future series. Happy to have all of you here today. My name is Amy Scott. I'm a program manager with the Northern Forest Center. And today our focus is encouraging entrepreneurship. We selected this topic because of the roles that entrepreneurs, especially small business owners, play in enriching our communities, enhancing their vitality. We recognize the importance of the private sector shaping our towns, so we wanted to hear from a panel of entrepreneurs about their experiences, hear from their thoughts on how our communities can better support them. So before we open up our panel, just wanted to address a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to have some individual introductions from our panelists, followed by a panel discussion. So you can post questions anytime throughout this whole webinar, and we ask that you please just put them into the Q&A and not into the chat. It just makes it a little easier for us to manage those questions. Also, please feel free to put your name in the chat so we can see who's here and where you're from. And just so that folks know, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar plus links and resources after in a follow-up email. So don't feel like you have to grab everything. You'll be able to come back to it after. So with that, I would like to introduce our panelists for today. We have Beth Weisberger, who is over in Maine, in Bethel, which is actually where I'm located. And she is the founder and the CEO of Gneiss Spice in Bethel, which is an online business. So located in Bethel, but you can purchase it from anywhere. We have Tim Clough, who's the co-owner of Iron Furnace Brewery in Franconia, New Hampshire. And moving over to Vermont, we have Nathaniel Klein, who's the co-founder of Treeline Terrains in Middlebury, Vermont. And finally, from New York, we have James Munn, who's the owner of Black River Valley Naturals in Lyons Falls, New York. So excited to kick this off. We've asked each of our panelists to give us a 5-minute overview and introduction to who they are and what they do. And so I'm going to bring it back to Maine and ask Beth to kick us off. Beth Weisberger, take it away.
Hey, hi. I assume you can hear me, right? Okay. I'm Beth Weisberger. I'm the owner of Gneiss Spice, and we take your cluttered spice situation and we turn it into a functional work of art. Which actually means we make these magnetic jars. They are glass and they have a magnetic lid that sticks to your fridge or a steel backsplash. This is a small size. We make a larger size. We also have 300 organic, sustainably harvested spices, so people can actually build their own custom spice rack, just choosing, the spices that they use in their own cooking, which I think makes us a unique option. We are completely online. We do have a pickup location in town if people order, but 99% of our business ships out of the state of Maine. We don't have a brick and mortar, at least not now. Our customers are mostly professional women, I feel like, who are trying to cook and get healthy meals on the table for their family, but they also, I think, like the stylish look of our spices, and probably primarily are just trying to stay organized and making things easier for themselves. And a big part of our business is actually about reducing kitchen waste. So our product is plastic free, and then we also offer refills that are shipped in compostable packaging that can be home composted. So making it sort of a zero waste system is the idea. In terms of myself, I'm originally a Mainer. I was born in Winthrop in central Maine. And after college, I actually moved to Brooklyn, New York, and I taught high school science for a decade, which I bet there's some people on this webinar that actually know that the word gneiss means is a metamorphic rock. I think a lot of people just think it's my name. If I had chosen a business name now, I probably would have picked something more well-known, but it rhymes with spice and it was funny. And I didn't know I was starting a business when I started a hobby, but so that's what Nice Spice is. And I had a tiny kitchen in New York, and anytime I tried to cook, I would have multiple cumin jars and I couldn't find what I needed. And that was sort of how I started looking for a spice organization system, couldn't find what I needed, and so created my own idea. It was a hobby business, and I still was teaching full time. My husband is an artist. He's also from Maine, and we bought a property in Bethel in 2010 with the idea that we would go there in the summers and he would use it as an art studio. But once Nice Spice became its own business and was more than like we could handle as a side business, we chose, and we wanted to start a family. And as people probably know, you're not a Mainer unless you're born in Maine. So we moved to Bethel. We moved my business into his art studio, which is now the Spice Studio. And we've been here ever since. He's a Nordic skier. And so that was sort of how we ended up in Bethel, which I think is part of this idea, is like, how's our business ended up where it is? There's no way I could have stayed in New York anyway, because there wasn't enough space. Like I was doing, at the time I was getting like single boxes of jars. And, when we moved in Maine, like I'm now receiving semi trucks filled with jars. So it's just, it never would have been possible for me to grow my business if I had stayed there. And I have some notes. Yeah, I don't, since we've been in Bethel, we're deeply involved in the entrepreneurial community here. We also own the movie theater and we have some property. So I feel like it, my business is online and it could be done anywhere, but, I feel very fortunate to be able to do it in a place where I can get outside and really enjoy where I'm living. So thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Let's hear from Tim over in Iron Furnace Brewery in Franconia.
I broke the rule already. I wasn't unmuted. Sorry. Tim Clough, Iron Furnace Brewery is located in Franconia, New Hampshire, in the White Mountains, up near Cannon Mountain for all of you ski enthusiasts. Our brewery is a small batch brewery that me and three of my long-time elementary and high school friends dreamed of doing a business together, every summer when we got together. And after a lot of back and forth, the brewery kind of fell into our laps. It was a result of me selfishly not having a place to grab a beer after a mountain bike ride locally, and being a mountain bike enthusiast, getting together with friends after to talk about the ride and have a beer kind of went hand in hand. The name Iron Furnace Brewery is named after the iron ore furnace, which you see right there. It's across the river from our brewery. It's the last freestanding iron ore furnace in New Hampshire. It sits right in the bottom of Sugar Hill on Main Street, across the street from us. When we talked about doing something, my best friend and one of my partners was a brewer at home. We brewed batches of beer during college together. None of them were very good at all. And if I had remembered that, we probably wouldn't have gone down this route 25 years later. But we talked about it with our wives and then called our other two buddies up. And 10 minutes later, we had the idea to open a brewery. And 6 months later, we had a building, and we're nearing our 5-year anniversary. You can see the pictures here of our new stainless babies. We just went through a massive expansion, which will allow us to send our beers off-site via canning or growlers, etc. My story is very similar to some of the other panelists here. Grew up in the area, just in the next town over in Lisbon, New Hampshire. Went to college in Southern New Hampshire, moved to Boston, met my wife, and then we both decided to move home to start a family. The unique thing with our brewery is that this is our part-time job. Me and the three owners all have full-time employment as well. So this is our hobby that turned from a 2 days over the weekend and a couple hours to now open 6 days a week with 45 plus part-time and full-time employees serving the local recreation scene. Here's a picture of our garden out front for an event we had this summer to raise money for the adaptive sports community. So it's been crazy. It's been fun. The area up here is growing rapidly with a lot of people leaving the cities and leaving Massachusetts and moving north. We've seen a tremendous amount of property transfers. So our local customer base has developed very quickly. And they've also been very vital to our success in getting us through tougher times during COVID when we weren't allowed to be open and things of that nature. So it's been a tremendous ride. Oh, there's a picture of the old man, the mountain, which you may be familiar with, which plays a pivotal role in our decor in our tap room. So again, going on our fifth year, and really excited to answer any questions any of you have later on today.
Thanks, Tim. Much appreciated. Let's hear from Nathaniel now, continuing to move west into Vermont.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Klein. I'm one of the founders of Treeline Terrains, and we are a small business that makes custom 3D wooden maps. And we primarily sell them as art pieces for wall and other forms of home decor, but also make tables and beer flights and pretty much any custom idea you might have. So the business started when the other two founders and I were ski instructors in college, and we wanted to give a memorable gift. But we just had a great season as a staff, and we really wanted to thank our boss for all of her hard work. So what we did is we went into the maker space and messed around with a CNC machine to carve our first map, which was a model of the Middlebury Snow Bowl where we worked. And we gave it to our boss, and she loved it. And it was the most memorable gift she'd received, and the most memorable gift we'd given. So after that, people said, okay, you got to try selling this. A couple of years go by, we don't really make any progress, but eventually, after college, we decided, let's give it a go. And we get our CNC machine and start making maps. And we've grown ever since. And I guess the other path of the business in terms of just giving a great gift is also connection to place in the local community. We have a really strong partnership with Vermont Ski Adaptive and make custom maps for them for different, building openings or other events that they host. And really just helping people engage with their landscape in a unique way. Because when people see our product, they say, wow, I've never seen something like this. And they get to know the trails, whether they're skiing or biking, or just the general landscape in a way that they've never seen it before or experienced it. So the way we make our maps is a process of computer aided and hand done. So the bulk of the design is in a couple different map making softwares and CAM softwares for cutting them out. And then once we have that, we combine that design with a block of wood that we've prepped and use our CNC router to carve out whatever custom map you would like. Once we do that, we move on to the sanding and the hand oiling and all these other steps, more traditional woodworking processing, and then we ship you your map. Our business is primarily online. We do some retail stores in Vermont and also some more custom business to business stuff. Like this slide was from someone looking for an award. So we can make awards and other things like that, but it's primarily custom landscapes for people giving gifts. Anyways, the other big thing I wanted to talk about today is why we're in Middlebury, Vermont, and why we moved back here. Because when it started, we were still in college, and then we moved away, but we ended up coming back to Vermont, and not just Vermont, but back to our college town. And the reason we did that is because of our strong connection to the community. We just never would have gotten our start if we had tried to go anywhere else. Vermont would have been easier than Massachusetts or New York, but since we knew a lot of people around, we were able to get a wood shop at a reasonable price, get grant money from the college to purchase our first CNC router, and other little things like that really go a long way when you're first starting a business, especially when you're starting a business for your first time as a relatively young person who is inexperienced in that. So without that community, we would never have gotten our start. In addition to those, leg ups from people around town, the town of Middlebury has been really supportive. Every winter, there's an event called the Midnight Stroll, where the shops will stay open late and sell their products to people looking for Christmas gifts. And we would attend that, hanging out in one of the real estate offices and sell our products. So there's just a really nice network of people who want to support young entrepreneurs, because it's such a unique idea and a unique product that people want to see us succeed. Yeah, I think that is all I have for my intro, and I'm excited to answer more questions.
Thanks, Nathaniel. Excellent. So to round it off, let's hear from James over in New York.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So my name is James Munn. I'm the owner and general manager of Black River Valley Natural. We're a small batch creamery and artisanal food producer located in Lewis County in Lyons Falls, New York. So we're right in that Black River Valley area between the Tug Hill and the Adirondack Mountains. And I'm very excited to talk to you all today about entrepreneurship in these rural areas that we call home. We started Black River Valley Natural 4 years ago, my wife and I did. And that was after, this was really a second career for us. I had spent my entire professional career in high-tech manufacturing. My wife was in healthcare, and we just decided that we wanted to do something different. I had grown up in Lewis County, but like many young people, left the area after high school. In fact, couldn't get out of the area fast enough. I spent my career kind of moving around up and down the East Coast. I spent some time in Vermont, actually, about 13 years there. But we got to a point in our lives, we had some young children, and we decided to change our definition of success. So like some of the other panelists here, we moved back to my hometown. We sold the house, quit the jobs, and we moved right back into my grandfather's old farmhouse, actually, where I had spent my childhood. We took kind of a different approach. We met with the county. We asked them, we knew we wanted to give back, but we didn't know what to do. So with their guidance, they sort of convinced us or tricked us, I guess, to get into value-add dairy processing. Didn't know a lot about it. Other than growing up on a dairy farm, but I thought I'd give it a try because Lewis County is one of the largest milk sheds in New York State, and we couldn't think of a better group of people to try to help than the farmers, and especially the small family farms, hundreds of which are in Lewis County alone. So we decided this would be a great way for us to give back. We were excited about doing it. I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, so this worked out really well. And what we really liked most about this, and I think some of the other panelists can agree, I mean, this, for us, it kind of checked all the boxes. It was a way for us to get involved in our community, help the economics of the area by providing some meaningful employment. And unlike our previous careers, we could do this as a family. So our kids would come to us, come with us to the office, to the plant. They did all of their remote school from a conference room in our plant. And so it was really nice for us to actually be able to spend a lot of time together as a family. Right now we offer a full product line, and we're with a focus on simple ingredients, all natural. We try to keep it under 3 ingredients if we can. We use traditional methods, and we want to provide sort of the our goal is to pay the farmer a meaningful price for their milk, a sustainable price for their milk, while at the same time providing excellent products for our customers. We've been at this for, as I mentioned, about 4 years now, and I'm excited that we're planning another major expansion. We have some investment coming in, and we're looking for more investment as well as we try to significantly expand our operations. So pretty exciting. Right now we're employing anywhere from 10 to 12 employees, depending on the time of year. And we're looking to grow that significantly. So, and one other thing I just want to add to, I did spend time in Vermont, as I mentioned, and we were very excited about the local food movement there. And that's what really, I think, kind of sealed the deal for us. We wanted to try to bring some of that excitement to this area because it's one thing we do really well here is we know how to grow and make food. So we thought it was a good fit. And so that's really been our focus here. So really excited to answer any of your questions that might be related to my story. So thank you very much.
Thank you, James, and thanks to all the panelists for your opening comments. If all the panelists could turn themselves back on, turn your cameras back on, we're gonna move into our discussion. And we have some questions that we're gonna discuss, but again, the audience out there, participants, feel free to put your questions into the Q&A if something comes up. And we'll just move along in our conversation together. And I'm just struck by how each of you had pretty significant reasons for choosing to locate your business in a rural community, in a place you were familiar with, in a place that had meaning to you. And I just wondering if you could share more about how those connections that you had in the past, or connections that you've continued to build in your community, how they've really affected your business, whether at the startup phase or as it's continued to grow and scale. Like, what is the role of that community connection within your business?
I'm happy to jump in, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. I think for me, when we sort of redefined what success was for us, it was that community connection was really something we were looking for. And this, starting a business in this area, I think really helped. We could have started a creamery anywhere. In fact, probably staying in Vermont would have been the smarter move business-wise. But we really wanted that connection with the community and and our family, my extended family that still lived in the area. And so that was really the primary motivation of why we did it there. It was that pull of family, that pull of our friends and neighbors. And what's interesting with a food business is I just feel like people can relate to that at such a basic level, and it really made the connections that much stronger. And where we live too, and probably many of the other areas in the rural areas here, is we had a lot of it's basically a food desert, and it's a very rural, it's just a real challenge to get good quality food into those areas. So we found that connecting over food, connecting with the local food pantries and the local churches, and sort of providing a way to get some of that food, especially during the pandemic, to get some of that food into the hands of the folks that needed it, was extremely rewarding, and in a way that I hadn't anticipated, and really helped to kind of, I guess, firm up the decision to uproot my entire family and do this. So that for me was a really special connection with the community personally.
Thanks, James. Anyone else want to jump in on that? Tim?
Yeah, sure, I'll jump in. My reasonings or things that kind of jump to mind are a little different, where the brewery's constantly evolving with maintenance issues, electrical, plumbing, etc. And being in a small community and knowing a lot of the people, my speed dial's littered with contractors that can, show up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday or 10 o'clock on a Monday night to help me with a leak or electrical fuse or whatever it is. So having those old friends that are now doing their own business from a contracting standpoint, whether it's building, plumbing, electrical, etc., has been huge for me when I talk about being able to get somebody there same day. And I know that hasn't been the case. It's the same with supply chain issues, them being able to pull some favors from me. Again, we're making beer. It's not life-saving stuff, but it is, they're able to help in a pinch. And then the other side of that is from the local standpoint, a lot of our customers, I don't like calling them customers anymore because they become friends, but we've got that cheers type of mentality where they come in and they see their other friends, and a couple of two, husband and wife, would come in on a Friday night and end up at a table with 8 other people. So it becomes a local gathering spot, which has probably been my favorite thing, kind of unintentional, but turned into that. And that's that community feel that we just, we smile when we walk in and we see people there. And it's like the norm, when people walk in, birthdays and when their grandkids are born and everything. So it's been a lot of fun. And I don't know that you get that when you're in a larger city, or you're more in just the straight distribution in our particular business. So that's been a big difference for us that I've noticed, those two things.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, during our pre-panel discussion, I think one of the things we talked about that fits to this question is also like just the local business community too. I think when you're in a rural area, like more is more. Like I don't feel like there's that like people, there's not a competitive feeling. Like I feel like being in the business community now, I meet other business owners, and I really do feel like people kind of show up and are willing to help and you know, share either solutions that have worked for them or people that have worked for them or things like that, that I just don't know. I haven't done a business somewhere else, but I can't imagine that well, like if your community is just too big, it's probably just hard to make those connections. And so I think that's a real benefit. And also that there's just a lot of business supports too. I mean, I think my SCORE mentor wants me to succeed just as much as I do. And, you know, I just, it's hard for me to imagine it would be like that somewhere else. And so I feel like I think of those people as part of my community too. They're not necessarily my customers, but they're part of my wider business community and make the place where I do business better. So.
Thanks, Beth.
I'll add
Nathaniel?
one more thing just so we have a clean sweep, but I wanted to say the other reason I think it makes sense to move to a rural place is just the excitement and the energy that a new business can bring. I think when you're in a city, you don't really stick out. There's so many businesses, people established, people new, and restaurants rise and fall all the time. But in a rural town, if a new restaurant opens up, it's the talk of the town for a month. Everyone is thrilled to try it. And I think that's the case with all businesses, where I feel like when we came back to Vermont, came back to our community, people were talking about us. We got press, like accidentally, people wanted to write articles about us. And we still felt like we had no idea what we were doing. But that excitement and energy can really help you in the startup phase a lot, which is really awesome. The other thing is, I think in a rural community, at least from my business perspective, there's a lot of very traditional businesses, your auto shop, your pizza place, your movie theater, things like this. But for us, since our product was so unique, people were really curious about it, had a lot of questions, and that kind of added to the excitement. And I remember the first time I went, because I'm the main craftsman behind our products and do most of the manufacturing. And the first time I bought lumber from the local lumber yard, I showed them what I was making. They were very confused, had lots of questions, but were also really excited and were telling the owner about it. And they were asking like, oh, is it some old cabinet maker? But like, no, it's a young guy. And they were, I think, very excited and kind of surprised to see someone who is, 20 years old coming, because most of their clientele was not of that age range. So from the new startup side of entrepreneurship, I think going to a rural community, people can really support you because they are so excited for new businesses and want to support people in their new ventures and adventures.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and kind of building on that, I'm guessing there's probably benefits and challenges in terms of other things about having your business in a rural place. So supply chains, vendors, ability to get your product to you and get your product out. Yeah, does anyone want to comment on that? We did hear a little bit about that from some of you in our discussions before this webinar, but I'm curious. And we heard a little bit from Tim about, the people to come help fix stuff and having that network. But yeah, but what about vendors and getting the materials that you need and things like that?
I think that, sorry, go ahead, Beth.
Oh no, I was just gonna quick say, I don't know, for me, I mean, we obviously get a lot of materials, and I think the only challenge is just like it adds like an extra day or two. I don't find that to be that much of a challenge, actually. I mean, I'm sure I pay more for freight and shipping maybe than I would if I were closer to a port. But I don't really see that as I don't know, that hasn't been an actual challenge, I don't think. I mean, I think supply chain is a challenge for everyone right now, regardless of where you live. And I don't know that it, right now I'm trying to get a pickup for a pallet to go to Canada, and it's been a week trying to get a truck to come, but like, okay, so it's a week, like it's not going to make a difference really in my business. So.
Yeah, I was just to add to what you said, Beth. I think your expectations change a little bit. So if you're expecting overnight, you have to reset your expectations that it's 3 to 5 days, and those are what you judge everything against. And the rural thing for me feels a little different because I'm off the major interstate that connects the north and south of New Hampshire. So 93 North is where the majority of the traffic goes. So we haven't had an issue with supply chain once it's actually available getting here. It's more of once it's available from stainless steel is not something readily available, aluminum, etc. So those are the types of things. But I don't think that the rural aspect, because there's breweries up to the tip of New Hampshire and Maine and Vermont and New York everywhere. So maybe we're a little unique in that because it's a little more common.
Yeah, I would just add on the customer side, that's kind of where I found my biggest challenge. We deliver a highly perishable product. We have to deliver within a 50-mile radius. So sometimes being in a rural area is a real challenge. That's actually over the last 4 years, we've had to evolve our business to deal with those challenges. For example, we've tended to gravitate more towards dairy products that have a longer shelf life, so that we can kind of sell bigger batches and kind of distribute more effectively and efficiently. We've also, but at the same time, we've had to diversify our product offerings so that to be sustainable, we essentially have to be in every little small mom and pop store within a 50-mile radius to sell at least something. Maybe not milk, but maybe yogurt or butter or cheese curd or whatever, because for our business model to work, we have to have, pretty much saturate the whole local area. So that was, I think, maybe the biggest challenge. We positioned ourselves close to our raw resources, but not necessarily near our markets, which was a bit of a challenge. So as we expand and grow, we're overcoming those challenges with building relationships with larger distributors and things like that. But that was definitely a little bit of a surprise when we first got started. We hadn't thought that all the way through.
Nathaniel, did you want to add anything to that particular question? And obviously you are a business using wood that is readily available, I think, in the location that you chose. So I don't know if that's as much of an issue.
It's definitely not as much of an issue, but I also think that, kind of idea is in the back of our head where, you want to be realistic with your expectations and also your creativity on saying, okay, what makes sense for my business to do? Where should I locate myself? Because you don't want to make those bigger challenges than they have to be. We could do our business as e-commerce, so we could live anywhere, but we're in Vermont because our wood shop is less than a mile from our lumber supplier. And it doesn't need to be that close, but it really goes a long way. And little things like that, just understanding, where you want to limit your, blockages and pinch points is really important for, business in a rural area. But yeah, like you said, not as important not as much of an issue for us because we, picked the right spot.
Yeah, excellent. It does make me think about some other types of both benefits and challenges of being in a rural place and developing your workforce and your employee base. And I'd love to hear any thoughts you have about how that's gone for you, or what your thoughts are about how it may go as you expand, if you're expanding and growing. Anything on the workforce piece?
Yeah, I could add something there. We've benefited a lot from having another large dairy processor within close proximity to us. We kind of joke that our creamery is the retirement home for those individuals. They sort of matriculate to our facility. So I have to say, though, that was a serendipitous discovery, I guess. We were able to readily tap a very experienced workforce, and we still strive to kind of hire people that we can train from the beginning. But as we were getting started, we could hit the ground running because we could get people in that knew more than I did about making these dairy products. So that was very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I can speak to that. We when we started, there were four of us. My wife was running the kitchen with her mother, and myself and one of the partners behind the bar, and we were four people. And then we changed the model of doing business to, table service and hosts, etc. So the local high schools are key to us in developing our staff, and then you get them, and then you get their friends, and you give them referral money if they keep their friends there for 3 months, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So going from 4 employees to upwards of 48, 50 in the summer, it's quite a transformation from where we were in the beginning. But again, being a place that pays well, reasonable hours, close early, respectful of all those things are important to the kids. Practices and school events, you get them out on time, and school's always first, because retention's hard, and it's a competitive market in the restaurant/brewery industry up here. So we've been successful. It does help. I have 2 teenage and high school sons with lots of friends to recruit, as well as some second job folks, and a couple part-time and full-time. So it's a really a mixed bag of what we have. But again, that's part of being a local community, is pulling on those resources so that they can, you can give them the service they want when they come in. So it's been an adventure.
I love the picture of James is pulling in the retired dairy. Tim's pulling in the new
I'm starting them
schoolers.
early. I'm starting them early.
This is
Yeah.
great. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, Bethel is very much, Sunday River's here. So we are a service oriented community. So I think, having my job is, well, flexible hours. Online doesn't really matter when we work. And most of the people work for me sort of 8 to 4 is the hours they like, which is not actually hard. It's kind of hard to find a job with hours like that in a service industry. So I think I have that benefit in terms of finding employees. However, I don't feel like we can talk about employees without talking about housing crisis and any of these areas that are blowing up in terms of people escaping the cities. And that is by far our biggest challenge. I mean, my best, longest employee I have right now was living in a house that got sold, and then she wanted to buy something. And, 4 years ago, she could have bought a house for under $300,000, but those don't exist in Bethel anymore. And she's now living in an actual camper with her baby. And, I just that, I still have her, but at what point is she going to decide this is just not going to work? I'm going to leave Bethel, And so I think that is just the challenge to me that I think about a lot. I think, that I don't know how that gets addressed, but that's definitely the biggest challenge I feel I face in terms of employees is finding places for them to live. So.
Yeah. A story we have heard a lot, and the center's responding to it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know it's a big focus.
Indeed. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it's also great in a rural area. I mean, you know a lot of people, and I feel like word of mouth is actually a great way to be able to hire people and find good people. So
yeah.
We don't have any employees because we're definitely still in the startup phase of our business, but what we have a lot of is interns. We're pretty close to the college, and we've had a steady stream of college interns, from our social media intern to a marketing intern to people with computer science backgrounds who really helped us working on automating our workflow in terms of the custom mapping. So you can go to our website, and rather than one of us designing your map, you can just drag a box over the landscape that you want, and then outputs a 3D image file to the customer and outputs, the G code, which controls our routers to me on the manufacturing side. And, we're not quite there yet, but we've been able to get people with incredible skill without the confidence, and we can kind of help them build their confidence. And they've been really, really helpful to us, accomplishing these projects that we don't have the money to pay for, and because we are in such a small phase. So I think using your community, connecting with all the different communities around you, and finding really great workers can go a long way if you just know how to talk to people and you're friendly, and just get to know your community in a deeper way. So no worker housing issues on our front yet, but definitely an issue in Vermont generally. And you hear about it. And I know the state has a lot of issues, there's definitely not a lot of young people. It's, an aging population. And I think that something to think about as our business grows.
Yeah, so kind of going back a little bit to the discussion about your startup and how you got going. I'm interested to hear a little bit more about what kind of supports you had, what kind of resources you were used to help launch your business. Beth, you mentioned SCORE earlier. Nathaniel, you've mentioned the college. James, you've mentioned some, other businesses, but are there other things that any of you want to share around those resources, those supports, and what you were able to find in the communities where you were starting your business? And Beth, I don't know if the actual launching of your business happened in Brooklyn or if that happened in Maine, but either way, just to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I found, I ended up going to SCORE, unintentionally. We were trying to get a mortgage to buy the theater building in Bethel, and they said that they would not, whatever the bank was, wouldn't give us a loan unless we got a business plan approved from SCORE. So I go to SCORE and with my business plan for the theater, and they only want to talk about Gneiss Spice. They were like, why do you want to do this other business? You got a successful one right here. Like, what? But that was useful. I wasn't walking in thinking that like, oh, these guys have a lot to teach me. I don't, and I feel like I was quickly corrected that like, there's a lot of people in our communities that have a lot of experience and knowledge. And I, that have helped us with starting up that business as well as growing my current business. And then also like I've done a program called Thrive through the SBA. And for the state of Maine, that was great. And I got to meet a lot of other business owners, lots of women business owners, which I, feel like very passionate about is getting more women into business and owning businesses. So, those are not resources that were like directly from the town of Bethel per se, but that are, Maine is small enough that I feel like the business community is supportive, and it's easy to find resources if you're looking for them. There's lots of things. I think a lot of people struggle and don't realize that there are a lot of supports out there that are free and people that are really committed to growing businesses in our state. And, I don't know how we make people more aware of those services that are there to support them, but they're definitely there.
Thank you.
There's one really great organization in Vermont. I think it's VTSBDC, but it's basically the Vermont Small Business Network. And we've gained a lot of advisors through that organization, just giving us, general business advice, marketing strategy, so-and-so, but also accounting services, law services, and they have these different grants and connections that can help your business get going, because it's a lot to handle at first when you're setting up all these different things, and they can really kind of demystify it and help you and answer all your questions in a way where you don't feel like, you're stupid. Because for someone who had never started a business before, there's so much you didn't realize you have to think about, and that goes into it. So that was a really helpful organization. And you don't think of it as something you have in Vermont. It felt like, oh, this is so professional, but it's there and they're there to help. Another connection I wanted to talk about because I saw a question about it, but how we source our lumber and our relationship to the timber industry around where we live. And that's been another really great connection. But our lumber supplier is A. Johnson Lumber. They're in Bristol, Vermont, and they've been really wonderful to us. We actually moved back to Middlebury area for that reason, because I couldn't find a lumber supplier that I liked better in terms of pricing or just quality of materials. And one thing that they did last fall is they filmed a commercial because they were trying to bolster their retail business and their hiring. They needed to hire people, and we were their featured retail customer, basically. So they did a little segment about us, and it was on the local news and online. It was very fun, and our friends were really excited to see it. And we're going to send it to the email, follow-up email after this, so if people are interested in learning more about our business, they can watch it. But for us, it was zero cost. They just filmed it for us, and they said, hey, here's a great marketing video you have, which we're just not at the point where we would ever be able to afford something like that. But we just made them a 3D wooden map of their lumber yard, and that was the deal. And it's been an incredible resource to have, and makes us look a lot more professional when we send that video than we might otherwise seem in different settings. So those relationships run really deep and can really, really go a long way.
That's excellent. I can't wait to see it. Tim or James, do either of you want to chime in?
Yeah, I can add a few things. I was amazed when I started down this path at just the sheer amount of resources available to someone who's interested in entrepreneurship. I'm also an SBA Thrive alum too, Beth, so I'll have to connect at some point. Great program. The SBDC, obviously, Nathaniel mentioned that as well. Yeah, fantastic. We benefited a lot from our local economic development office as well, Naturally Lewis. We worked with the Chamber of Commerce, Cornell University, Cornell Cooperative Extension. ANCA has been huge. We've had some angel VC firms as well that have been really helpful, not just in funding, but also providing mentorship and support. And then when we first started our business planning, we worked with the Shipley Center up at Clarkson. So there was I even did a project in a previous life with Middlebury College and the incubator program there too. So very familiar with a lot of those resources. There's just so many, and I'm continue to discover new ones pretty much every month. Somebody else pops up. SciTech is another one I've just recently started to work with. So huge amount of support there, which is great for someone in not only a startup with limited resources, but also the expertise, the funding, there's just so many options out there to help guide you and to provide those resources when you need it. It can actually be almost overwhelming in the beginning, and so you have to figure out how to. It's helpful if you have a guide or somebody that can help you navigate through all that. But and I do find that the agencies, they work a lot together, and they'll often refer you to other groups that can maybe better serve you too. So that's been very helpful. But at the end of the day, it comes down to networking, and that's how I find most of my resources, frankly, is just constant discussions and meeting with these folks. So I would encourage anybody who's thinking about entrepreneurship, but maybe intimidated, maybe feel like they don't know enough or anything. But I mean, take it from me, I didn't even know how to spell butter when I started this creamery. So there are lots of resources out there to help. And as long as you're passionate and driven, I call it, if you're willing to be the head on the beast, so to speak, like to kind of drive, you will get the support you need when you need it. There's just so many great people out there that want you to succeed. I think that I can't stress that enough.
That's awesome to hear. Would you say, Tim, that it's the same in New Hampshire?
Yeah, you kind of don't know what you know until you find out. I was thinking that no, we never had any grants, and as Beth and Nathan and James started talking, I'm like, wait a second, we had 3 different grants that we were awarded from. Eversource gave us one for electrical, and the spray foam insulation we put in our building. We received some from the new roof. There was also a technological grant that we used to put towards our new chilling system for our cold room. So I completely forgot about them because my partner does them, and I organize the work and he helps to get it paid for. The other thing's a little different in us. We started this out of pocket, so we didn't get any financing. And our goal was to always never go back into our pockets again. And that's why our growth has been very slow in the brewery world. A lot of breweries start 1 barrel, 2 barrel, and then they're a 10-barrel system and they're canning all over the place. We went much slower because we didn't want to have to take out a personal savings. So we were able to reinvest how well the brewery had done back into this new expansion. So a little bit of a different story from a funding perspective, but a lot of the grants were key. And we found out about them from our contractor, from their brewery 10 miles away, and from a restaurant, just having that network of people that you talk to. That again goes back to the rural local communities are the key to that, because there's not that competitive feel between us. It's like, hey, if we do well 10 miles away, more people are going to travel up north to see your brewery than they're going to see my brewery, et cetera, et cetera. So it all kind of goes together.
Yeah, that's interesting. Would others agree on the comment about the sort of the lack of competitiveness? I mean, Beth, you did talk about that a little bit earlier, where there's just sort of this general feel of, more business is more business, it's a good thing, and that there's not that sort of competitive feel in our small communities, but rather that there's support for it. But I'm curious if any of the rest of you have thoughts about that, and if you want to comment any further on, what collaboration looks like with other businesses in your community in whatever form that might be.
Yeah, I got to jump in here because I actually made my own competitors. So I think it speaks to Beth's point about, rising tide lifts all the ships, right? So we took the approach early on that to be successful, we wanted to create almost a center of gravity, or we wanted Lewis County or the Black River Valley to almost be a destination in and of itself for people interested in local foods and great cheese curd, for example. So when we first built our facility, we were only using a portion of it, and we had a lot of extra capacity. So we sought out co-manufacturing customers, private label for it, to help us use up some of this extra capacity. And in doing that, we encountered a few other local farmers that were looking to build their own on-farm creameries, but were maybe nervous to start that or to go down that path. And so we offered up some of our extra capacity to them so that they could try to build a market first, then decide whether they wanted to pull the trigger on, what could be a very expensive endeavor to add a creamery to their dairy farm. Or they may learn that that's not what they want to do, and at least they learned it before they invested all that cash and time. So we actually had 3 farms that we worked with, and there's more in the pipeline, of folks that have sort of dabbled with their own brands. They've maybe bottled milk or made cheese curd or yogurt or whatever, and they sell it at their on-farm stores. And so we've really enjoyed helping them to do that and to explore that option, because I don't think there's anything more rewarding to a farmer than being able to sell a product in their farm store that they made themselves. And with the regulations around dairy processing, it's very hard for a farmer to actually do that. Oftentimes their milk gets commingled with other farmers, and it goes off to some co-op somewhere, and they don't really. Yeah, they can kind of point to milk on the shelf and say, yeah, some of our milk might be in that jug, but this really lets them know for sure. And it's been exciting to see that grow in our area. And we have had one farmer that's now made the leap to their own on-farm processing. So I kind of say they've graduated from the program and moved on. And we compete in a few markets, but to me, it's more about, again, the rising tide lifting all the boats and getting people excited about it. And it does drive innovation. It forces us to be a little more creative, and which is not a bad thing. So, and we still help each other out. I mean, there was a comment made earlier about the community support, and I can't tell you how many times I've run low on cocoa powder or ran out of bottles and had to call these guys up and say, hey, can I come down and get a bag of cocoa or something? And we reciprocate that as well. And it's been really helpful in that sense, especially being in a rural area where it may take a week to get a new load of bottles in or something like that. So that's been very, very helpful. So.
Oh, that's fascinating, especially your comment about it kind of forces you to innovate. I just thought that was really, really interesting, where in other models, this kind of idea of we all have to make our own space in a market base or in a community or in a type of business versus no, let's all do this together. It's going to help us all create better products or do something different or something new and help each other out. It's pretty fascinating. Anyone else want to weigh in or comment on that?
Yeah, I wanted to say, it's interesting for our business, but I'm not sure if Beth feels this way, but as an e-commerce business, I know our competitors are in Utah and maybe California and Australia, and that's the only three. So it's very spread out. There's a few other people who make similar products, but they're so far away that it is really just a supportive community, which is really nice. And in addition to that, I think there's a lot of overlap with helping each other out in terms of designing new products, especially as a custom business. But I just went and found this, but this is a coffee tray that we made. It was a dud because of this knot right here. But this was for one of our friends who was a local coffee company called Illuminar Coffee. And he was going to a barista competition and he wanted to serve his drink on the landscape where the coffee beans come from. So it was a really cool, unique product that we helped him design and came up with, and really went a long way at this competition. So I think those relationships that are both personal and business help lead to new product development, and just fun, creative things happen along the way.
That's very cool. So where is that, by the way?
This is in Colombia.
Neat.
Yeah, there's usually a label, but like I said, this is a reject. So if anyone wants a coffee tray, let me know.
Anyone else?
No, but are we ending right at 10? Are we like right at the end?
Oh, sorry, we're ending at 1:30.
Oh, sorry, I'm actually in Oregon right now visiting my
I
grandma.
was gonna say.
But I am my time is very messed up. I
I
don't want to like overstep, but I'm actually really interested in like two questions that are in the Q&A that are very similar, because that are about the municipal support and what people would like to see or what they have seen, because I feel like probably one of I don't know how many people in Bethel are on this listening, but I feel like the town of Bethel sees itself more as like enforcers of regulation, maybe as opposed to like supporters of visioning what the future would look like. Or maybe we're kind of at a crux where that might change. But I feel like when I am friends with a lot of people who have started businesses in the last few years in town, and I don't know that we really have received the type of support that feels supportive, as opposed to more just like rule following. And I guess I would like to know what other panelists have received or would like to, like, what could it look like in a small town if to have a supportive town government.
Yeah, that's great, Beth.
So I think I was spoiled because there was a need and a want for our business. So we received a tremendous amount of support. The unique challenges that we had is water is in high demand for us, as well as the waste management. So we have town water, but private septic. So fighting through and learning way more than I ever wanted to about septic design, working with the town was critical, being near a floodplain and dealing with those types of things. So a lot of it was from the EPA side of it, and the 100-year flood plans, et cetera. But it was brand new to the entire town. They'd never had a brewery that was going to demand that much water, create additional waste and stuff. But again, the small town stuff really helped out. The planning board, 3 of them have students or have kids in my son's class. So it's, again, really, really small to be able to get that from them. But just their understanding of what requirements would be needed for a new business was a little bumpy in the beginning, but they're agreeing to work harder to find it because they were excited for our business is kind of where it went back to, the difference in something in a small town getting a lot of attention, like Nathan said, versus, if you're in a big city, they may not care about the 30-second new restaurant to open up in the month. So we're pretty fortunate here for that.
Thanks, Tim.
One example I wanted to share about, the municipal network and also violations in small towns, but our business did have a violation. We had a zoning violation, which we found out about later. But we met with the zoning board, and the main person we were talking with was Chris, and he was really supportive. He really liked business, and he gave us a lot of time to figure it out. And we're actually still in violation of this zoning law, but we're in the process of moving to a new wood shop. And I don't want to say, maybe I shouldn't have used his name, but anyways, I wouldn't say it's looking the other way, but giving us time and say, okay, they're a young business, they're figuring it out, they're making steps in the right direction rather than just like coming down hard with an axe, which I feel like could be more likely in a big city where you don't have those personal relationships and networks, where I think people do want to see you succeed. So I have, good things to say about the town, even though I haven't interacted a ton with it. They have been supportive in terms of giving us time to figure things out.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit too. I think just like Tim, I feel a little bit spoiled. When we were first looking for a location for our creamery, we kind of had a set budget. We knew our budget did not include the construction of a new facility, so we were looking for existing facilities that we could fairly easily retrofit, inexpensively retrofit. But we had to have access to lots of water as well, and we had to have a good wastewater system, or a way to manage that ourselves. We needed 3-phase power. We needed natural gas. And so we ended up in a nearby town in Lyons Falls, from where I grew up. They had an initiative ongoing to redevelop an old paper mill site. And so the county had spent a lot of time and effort and money remediating that location, sort of tearing down some of the old buildings, getting the asbestos abated, all that kind of good stuff, and essentially turning this site back over into a greenfield development site. And it's right on the shores of the Black River, right on a 40-foot waterfall. It's an absolutely gorgeous site. It's a real gem. And so we happened to find a building, one of the many buildings that was on that site, that would work perfectly for us. So we initially started renting that building from the county, and they were very flexible with us on terms. And I'm happy to report just in December, we closed on purchasing that site. And they were very helpful in helping us to finance that and to get that property, because it was just so critical to protect our flank and help us for expansion. We just needed the extra space. So not only did we buy the building we were in, but we got some of the surrounding property as well, right up to the river. So it's a great opportunity for additional development, and not just for the creamery, but other ventures that we're sort of looking at to help bring more folks and more business into the area. So we're really excited about that. So I have to say that since we were willing to work with sort of the assets that the county had available, and they were trying to, basically trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? They had this site, we had a business, and they really tried hard to find a way to make it work. I know a lot of the economic development goal organizations you work with, they'll tell you that our goals are a little different. They want to rent a space and sort of cover their bills, but their ultimate goal is to get a business in there that's going to succeed. And sometimes that means, maybe deferring rent or interest only payments and doing creative things like that, that maybe a commercial lender or developer would not be able to do. So they sort of help fill a niche there, especially in the startup world. So I would encourage people to, start there if they're looking for, if they don't think they can afford a facility, but they know they need one. Don't be so quick to sort of turn that off. There are organizations and groups out there that can help get you into a space, especially if it helps with your long-term success. So
yeah, I mean, I would add, like, I think so when you go to the town, there's things you just don't know you have to do, like registering something, or and I think something that like from a municipal standpoint that would be really helpful to a startup business would be almost like a little timeline sheet of like, these are the different type of, this is what you need to turn into the town that's going to be like legally required. This is when the liquor licenses are reviewed. This is when this, something where people could actually get an accurate timeline of how long will it actually take to open my business. And especially if it's somebody who's like never had a physical business before, because I mean, so my spice business is actually in the township outside of Bethel, which is just like the Wild West, right? So like there's no zoning, there's no nothing, like I just do what I want out there. But when we opened the theater, like we had a sharp learning curve of what was required. And I mean, just we literally knew nothing. And I feel like we just kind of hit like roadblocks over and over again. And people in the office were they helped us figure out what to do, but it would have been really helpful to know from the beginning that we had to do it instead of like getting in trouble, having not done it, and then coming back and doing it. So I think something like that the town could actually like give people who are thinking about opening a business would be really helpful. So to answer that question, but.
So you're saying too that having the towns have something, or the county in some situations, have sort of those checklists, or.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it would look like, and I'm sure it would be different at all the places we live. But yeah, like almost a checklist of what, and also like, with opening, we had a cafe that just opened in town, but having to get the fire marshal and do all these things that are obviously required before you can open a business, but they take a really long time, can be months. And so I think it would also just help people have a understanding of how long it might take before they can actually have their first sale, something like that. But because I think sometimes people think like, I could just rent this space and then I can open my business and sell my products. And it's not that simple. And so I think that's where a lot of the headaches happen, because there's misunderstandings. Like some people have this information that this group needs, but I don't think there's a proactive, my experience, there hasn't been like a proactive way to give people like at least the knowledge of what their next steps are. So I think that would be helpful for new businesses that don't know what they're doing. So.
Yeah, that's actually, so others may have something to say about that, or maybe their towns or communities do have those checklists, which would be really cool to share around. But it does sort of prompt another question for all of you to reflect on and share just around. So what are those things that you might want to pass on to other people who are budding entrepreneurs, or who maybe have it in their mind for someday? Like, what would you pass along? So that's almost like what you're saying about that is almost like a wish list item that would be great for the next people. But also, are there other things that you would share? I mean, I've heard a lot from all four of you around relationships and the importance of relationships, and the to not underestimate the value that those connections can have in your navigation of your business development. And that probably even goes to, well, if you get to know the people at the town, they might be more helpful with helping you with all of those pieces, right? But so I'd love to hear reflections on kind of those two pieces from any of you.
Just real quick, one comment I would add is build a relationship with your village council or town board right away, right from the beginning. I think even before I had signed my lease, I was already meeting with the village to kind of give them a heads up. This is what I'm thinking, because I did draw a lot of information from that meeting and that forum. When it mainly from the questions I was getting asked, like, have you done this yet? Have you done that yet? So that was I think a helpful thing. And then the other thing I would just add was I had the benefit of sort of teaming up early on with sort of a veteran business owner in the area. And they turned out to be a great mentor and a coach to help navigate. It wasn't the same business, but it was similar enough to where, I could benefit from their experience. And so seek out a mentor that's kind of navigated in the same community that you're in, right? Not a generic business advisor like someone from SCORE might provide, but somebody who really knows how to do business in that area. Yeah.
Anyone else, Tim or Nathaniel?
I think this kind of sums it up, but one of the things that I would pass on is patience and being able to roll with the punches, because all the things that Beth just said, it's bringing back a little bit of nightmares, actually, thinking of some of the hurdles that I found about with a certain wood that I was going to use inside the brewery had to have a certain sealant on it, and this space of the bathrooms and the stalls, and like a lot of the stuff that you just learn as you go. And it's not going to happen in a week or a month or a year. It's going to take a lot of time, and just learn to be patient and roll with the punches, and be understanding that planning board member probably has a full-time job and is a volunteer, or that building inspector has 22 jobs that week. So you may believe you're the number one priority, but you're not to them. And I've found that killing them with kindness and patience is the best way to create good relationships with municipalities. That's probably a big city, small city, rural, whatever, but yeah.
Kind of building
That's
off
great,
of those
Tim.
two ideas, I just wanted to say, I was originally going to say, find a mentor, but also find as many mentors as you can. Try to just gain people in your circle, because everyone is going to offer unique perspectives and different ways of helping you. And kind of addition to that, I think something I've thought about a lot after starting the business is that you think all of your problems are unique. You think, oh, I'm the only one in the whole world dealing with this thing. Like there's only 3 other people making 3D custom art decor. But actually all the problems that you're having, most business owners are probably facing too. It's slight variance. So I think talking with your mentors, talking with other business owners can really go a long way and help you as you're starting your business, even though you weren't, if you go to ask one question, you might have 3 different questions being answered just based on people living similar experiences. So find lots of mentors and you're going to succeed.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Beth, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I agree with wholeheartedly with what everybody said. I mean, especially the patience. And, I think it probably depends too where you are in your, what your previous history has been and like what career you had before you decided to be an entrepreneur. I think some people come into it knowing that like there's going to be a lot of rules and regulations and it's going to take time. And I think, the people that have probably struggled more were people like me originally, who like I was a teacher before this, like I had no experience of in any kind of industry similar to this. And I feel like I just see that repeated in our town. Like a lot of the businesses that struggle, I feel like are more of the younger entrepreneurs that don't necessarily know what they're getting into. And I don't know how much of that is just lack of previous experience or just naivete or, but I think the mentor part is probably the most important. It's like finding a established business in town that can kind of help you answer questions and tell you what you need to do is probably the biggest thing. And that's not necessarily something the municipality provides, but they're going to make it a lot easier to navigate the municipality. I think if you have somebody like that to rely on to answer your questions before you go into the town office, it would be helpful.
Great. So I really appreciate everything you're all sharing and passing along to people listening to this webinar and people who will listen to it later. And I want to close this out with a question, kind of a wrap-up question, I guess, which kind of comes back to James's comment earlier at the very opening, actually, of saying, you went into this because you and your family were basically looking to redefine what success looks like for yourself. And I just wanted to put it to all of you, how do you define success for your business? Especially as it pertains to the role your business plays in your community.
I'll jump in. This is a really interesting question because I think, we own two businesses. So the theater in town is a very, local based business. We obviously can only serve people immediately that live here. And there's probably not enough people in the town of Bethel to support a movie theater. If I didn't have my business currently to subsidize this other business, we wouldn't actually be successful, or we would have to, it would have to look different, and we'd have to change our business model. And so I think that's, is in terms of community though, having a local movie theater that does community events and that to me is by far a much more successful business in terms of making the community better in the place that I live. But honestly, I don't know that business could actually survive on its own as a profitable business. So that's a really interesting question, because it's I have a business that doesn't sell locally really. I mean, probably 0.5% of my sales are in the state of Maine. But that being able to live in Bethel and have a business that serves people elsewhere allows me to also do these other business in a community that I think actually impacts the community in a positive way, much more than my online business does. I mean, my online business provides good jobs, and it helps the community that way in terms of being more stable, but it doesn't, it's not a brewery is gathering space, a food product is you're really helping the sustainability of your area. So I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't, in terms of what kind of businesses can be successful and, what success looks like. I mean, at the end of the day, you do need to be able to pay your bills and stay open and keep people employed. So, yeah.
Mine, there's two parts to that, in my opinion. The first one is just from a financial perspective. Again, none of us expect to retire because of the brewery. This was something we started as a hobby in addition to our primary careers. So to continue to be self-sufficient, right? Being able to sustain itself and grow and continue to invest back into the business is the goal. Employ the local staff that we have. But it really Beth just hit on it. Being able to host those local events. We host rehearsal dinners, we host baby showers. The Adaptive Sports Group hosted an event here last weekend with 120. We had a mountain bike event hosting 3 local towns that we had 140 people at the brewery on a Sunday. So doing those type of events and give people a place to go for those. And then selfishly, I just wanted a place to have a beer after a mountain bike ride and be able to continue to have that place that is part of people's day. You go skiing at Cannon, oh, we're going to IFB for a beer. It's just part of the ritual that the locals have, and they get to show off to their friends that are visiting. So that would be the success, is keep seeing that type of clientele coming in to share that experience with their friends and families, and again, continue to employ as many kids and people as we can.
Yeah, and I think with in my particular case, it was a very personal thing. My wife and I were both kind of in middle management in a corporate environment, and we saw the writing on the wall. The more successful we were in our professional careers, the more it was going to take us away from our home, our kids. It was more travel, it was more, longer hours, and we, okay, it puts more, commas in your paycheck or whatever, but it was not, especially with young children at home, it was not the direction that we wanted to go. And so we deliberately chose a business that, where the kids could come to the plant, where we could do it together as a family. And for us, it was a very personal decision. I think we enjoyed the connection with our larger community and our family, but larger family, but it was really, for us, it was a very personal decision. And working with a spouse brings its own challenges. Anyone who's done it, I'm sure, will agree. But it was a way for us to kind of reconnect to, after having a very tough decade or so, in the corporate world. So so I think it's a little bit of both, but for us, it was a very personal decision. Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to build off of that lifestyle point, where some of this starting a business is selfish, and it should be selfish, because if you don't want to start your own thing and be an entrepreneur, then you're not going to enjoy that process. So I think for me and my two business partners, is we started this, we're all ski instructors, and we all still love to ski and snowboard. And part of the reason we wanted to live in Vermont is just that enjoyment of life, that outdoor recreation that I know a lot of my friends who live in cities wish they could do every weekend. And although my friends who are consultants and working their way up through those corporate ladders are making more money than we are, we define success as that lifestyle, being in a place that we love to live, and not being afraid to say, oh, I'm actually done work for the day because I own the business, and I'll work a little bit, I'll get up early tomorrow or whatever, but I'm going to go enjoy the sunshine or go skiing, whatever it may be. But having that flexibility is really how I define success. In addition to that, I think those local partnerships, we've made a lot of maps and displays for the Vermont Adaptive Community, and also for the Middlebury Area Land Trust and other museums, and having those tactile ways to experience the landscape and see kids interact with it, and people from the community who aren't necessarily paying for your product, but who are seeing what you do and engaging with the landscape in really meaningful ways, also feels really good.
Thank you. Fantastic. I really appreciate all of you sharing your stories and your lessons and your thoughts and reflections on this. This has been really helpful, really interesting, and I think we'll have quite a package of resources to share in the follow-up email. So thank you all really for taking the time to share with all of us. We really appreciate it, and this has been super valuable, and I'm glad you all made the time to be here, so thank you. I also want to thank everybody who showed up today. Thanks all to the participants for signing in, and also want to thank our funder, USDA Rural Development, and some other funders who are supporting this whole webinar series. So lots of appreciation for all the things that it takes to hold this webinar together and have these stories and information to share for our Northern Forest communities. So in our follow-up email, there's going to be an evaluation. The link to that evaluation will also go in the chat. So please, for those of you who are listening in, please take a few minutes to fill that out. It really helps us to keep improving this series and bringing topics that are of interest to communities. So if you are interested in learning about another area of the Northern Forest Center's work, we also have another webinar series from our forest economy team. And thanks, Isabella, for putting up the registration link to Ensuring Long-Term Forest Health and Resiliency, which is the next webinar in that series coming up on April 19th. In our community investment series, which this series is within, our next webinar is coming up in May on empowering young leaders, and I'm excited about this one, and I think it's a great follow-up to this one after hearing Nathaniel, hearing your story of coming into a new business as a young person and playing a role in your community. And I'm just excited to see who we can pull into this webinar and get that conversation going about young leadership in our region. So thanks again to everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and appreciate you being here. Thank you.